Yeah.
All right. Okay, this is Keaton's roadmap to success, and he's got some issues. I wouldn't. He has a resource guarding problem, but he also has an I want to say aggression problem. I think his problem is really perception of leadership. In his mind, I think thinks that he needs to be in charge of the humans, and I think that when humans come over that he doesn't like or he disagrees with, he is being very physical with them. Now, if you are real physical with the dog back, this can actually accelerate the process. If the dog isn't physical to begin with, it learns to become physical, or it gets more physical, or it gets physical with those that are smaller than him. So if we have a guardian who has little kids that comes over to visit, he might be more aggressive with them because he perceives them having less authority. Now, I always like the dogs to do the work on their own, and the way that I like to accomplish helping shift the leader-follower dynamic is by basically enforcing rules consistently. Dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. If we don't have a lot of rules, it's hard for us to be consistent or have good timing or repeat anything with any consistency. So basically, the rules that I suggest is not being allowed on any furniture at all. Now, this is a really big place, so it's going to be hard to keep the dog off the furniture, but whenever the humans are around, he shouldn't be on the furniture. When the humans are gone, if he's on the furniture, it's not as big of a deal because there's nobody else that he's perceiving himself as having more authority. I would never let him behind you on the top of the couch or somewhere it's higher than humans. Some of the other rules that we suggested is in between the couch and this wall. With anybody's eating food, the dog is not allowed to be in this area. We're going to use the escalating consequences to move him away. Now remember the escalating consequences, there's 4 of them. The first one is we're going to hiss. We're going to match the intensity of our hiss to the dog's energy. We have to meet or exceed his energy. Hiss only 1 time per incident. Second thing we do is we stand up abruptly and turn to face him. And then when the dog starts moving around, we're going to pivot and keep the dog in front of us. As soon as it's stationary, we're going to take 2 steps backwards. Only 2 steps. Pause 1 second after you take your steps, then you can go back to doing what you're doing. The third consequence is marching directly at the dog. When I say march, I don't mean stop. I'm moving deliberately towards him, almost giving him like a startling reaction. Keep marching directly at him no matter where he goes until he turns sideways or greater away from you. As soon as he does, stop in place, put your feet together, then we go to the second consequence. We pivot as he's moving around, and as soon as he's stationary, we take those 2 steps back, pause a second, and then go back to doing what we're doing. The only time we wouldn't respect that, the turning sideways, is if the dog turns sideways inside a designated no-dog zone. So right here, the dog's not allowed to be in front of this couch when someone's eating food. So the dog's here and it turns sideways, but it's still inside. We would bump into the dog and until the dog gets outside of the boundary, then we would stop. This is how we enforce an invisible boundary. The fourth consequence is to put the dog on a leash and do a leash timeout. Now you put it on a leash, step on the leash, in his case about 1.5 feet to 2 feet away from where it's attached to his collar. We wait. If he throws a temper tantrum, let him do it, don't disagree. As soon as he gets done, he will sit down, but he'll sit as far away as the leash will allow. If this is the foot that's on a leash, I'm going to slide it towards the dog to take the tension off of the leash. A minute later, or several minutes later, he will lay down. Don't tell him to sit or lie down. He's got to do these things on his own. As soon as he lies down and he's calm, I very subtly take my foot off the leash. Now he's free, he's going to be dragging the leash. Now it's dangerous for him to drag the leash because he can get caught and injure himself, so make sure you're supervising him. But as soon as, if he starts to do something aggressive or that we don't want, as he runs by, we can step on the leash and reapply the consequence. Or if a couple minutes later, a couple minutes go by and he's nice and calm, we go over and we detach the leash. It's not quid pro quo. What we're saying is you're going to be defiant, you lose all freedom until you return to a completely calm state of mind. It's important to remember that calm is, or excited is not necessarily happy. So when we come home, we're going to be calm. And we're going to expect the dog to be calm as well. If the dog is excited and jumping up, we're going to ignore it, walk in, go to the other side of the house, take your jacket off, do whatever you're going to do. And when he starts to settle down, reach over towards him. You start wiggling, pull your arm back, and then continue doing your thing. If the dog's head is here, at first I might be like here, then a couple minutes later I might be here, a couple minutes later I might be here. Eventually I can touch. Now when it comes to petting him, we'd like to pet him under his chin and avoid petting him on top of his head. Now he's pretty confident about that, but it's just a good idea to pet him, especially when we're doing passive training or petting with a purpose. So for petting, we want to make sure that we are not petting him at all, under any circumstances, unless he is earning it first. He can earn it by sitting, coming, laying down. He has to just do something to change his state unless he is prepaying for attention. Now remember, we're going to use a watchword of paycheck. So if somebody comes in the room and sees that you're petting and he's standing up, we're going to say paycheck, you stop petting, tell him to sit, and then we ask him, pet him under his chin and say sit again. Remember not to repeat a command word over and over. The more you repeat it, the less you mean it. So if you say come and the dog's over there and doesn't come, go over there and get him. Now, because he likes to play this game, he has to get some meds for some allergies or some infirmity. The guardian has got a habit of chasing him around the place. So what I would do is move the furniture so we kind of prevent him from looping it around. And the other thing to do is teach him to come to us. We can use passive training to do this. So every time he comes to us, we pet him and say, come. Well, after a while, we say, come. He comes to us expecting to get that affection. So anything your dog does on a regular basis, you can pet it and reinforce and teach it to do it on command. Every time he sits down next to you, pet him and say sit. Every time he lays down, pet him and say crash. When he takes his first bite of food, we say grub, chow, feast, whatever the word is that you want. Passive training is slower, but is easier because you're not actually doing anything other than waiting for the dog to do it, being observant, and just rewarding it and assigning a command word. Let me see. Because we have a boyfriend who the dog is learning to tolerate, but he is still reactive to at times. Dogs get over things by literally moving forward. So what I'd like the guardian to do is when the boyfriend is coming over, or any male guest if possible, somebody that's repeatable, somebody that knows what they're doing, is they're going to, the guardian's going to have him already suited up with the martingale collar. She's going to have a special twist around the leash, and she's going to, as soon as the guardian comes to the door, he's going to text before she gets here. So she's just going to go over the door, give him the leash, and she's going to stay inside. He's going to go out and walk down to the end of the block. When he gets to the end of the block, he's going to text her. She's going to come outside and put treats. Now, what I was doing is putting on the sidewalk in front of the driveway or the walkway to each house. And then basically, I would have her text from 105 to 115. And so when he's coming back, then he gets to 115. Okay, so I know there's going to be treats here. I'm looking on the ground. Now, the guardian, we didn't film this. The guardian's boyfriend did an awesome job. The martingale gave him a lot more control. As soon as the dog saw it, he started lurching for it. Well, that's trying to take, that's assertive. What we're going to do is we're going to give that quick correction, take the tension off the leash, make him sit when he's nice and settled, then we start approaching it again. As soon as the dog starts trying to take and move ahead, we stop, he has to go back into a sit, and then we keep repeating this process until he can go and take it very quietly and gently. You could say take it or whatever the word is when the dog takes the treat. But this way now, when the boyfriend comes over, something good's going to happen. I get to go for a walk. I get these treats. The boyfriend gets to practice correcting the dog and leading the dog to these treats. And we're but we're facilitating this introduction in an outside environment, which is going to be a lot less stressful for the dog. All right, so outside we also went over a leave it exercise, and that's going to be important for the guardian to practice. I'm not going to go through the details of that. I did a pretty good job on that, but make sure you practice that. When it comes to dog training, we want to practice in no longer than 3-minute increments. And we always want to end it on a good one. 3 minutes would be maximum. I would suggest about a 1 minute. So if we're going to leave it, grab like 10 treats. Always end on a good one. If you start getting frustrated, the dog start getting frustrated, stop on the next time you have a good one and call it an end. And try to do something nice for him. On the walk, we talked about the structured walk. Structured walk, remember, rule number 1, stay in your position. On the left side, the dog's front shoulder should be aligned with the human's hip. If the dog starts to move forward, we bend forward to correct, and then immediately relax our arm. Make sure we keep the arm relaxed. The primary guardian was starting to pull her arm back to pull the dog into position. That's going to activate the opposition reflex, and you're going to have the tug of war the whole time. Quick tug up, and then immediately relax it. You relax it so fast, he doesn't have a chance to pull against the leash. So rule number 1, stay in your position. Rule number 2, your arm is relaxed, going straight down. Rule number 3, no stopping and sniffing. A dog can sniff. But this is a structured walk. This is not an everyday walk. This would be an everyday walk in the short term. But eventually, to say a dog can't sniff would be cruel. But if we stop to let it sniff, then it's dictating the walk to us. And a dog's nose controls 60% of its brain, so it can't think of what we're doing, even if we have a stake for it. The other rule is no marking. Now, we're in Hancock Park in LA, so a lot of people walk their dogs to do business. We're going to go to the place that we want the dog to do business, and that's where he has an opportunity to do it. The rest of the walk, we're not going to let him mark, because the more he marks, the more he's asserting himself and the more reactive he's going to be in this neighborhood. And so we want him to take that away. Now, he probably is going to start withholding it a little bit because he thinks he's going for the walk. I walk next to trees and things. I just don't stop. If you stop, he's going to mark it. So walk near it and walk at a brisker pace if you need to. You can pop the leash if you need to. And remember, if he lags behind, do not pull him. Don't keep your arm stiff. Keep your arm like a noodle. If he's lagging behind, just let your arm go and just hold it on the leash and just keep on walking. The rig will keep him walking with us. And if he really goes bananas, you can actually make sure you have the leash short but not tense. And so the only motion is just a short little hand movement. And if he goes bonkers, we can actually pull his front paws up off the ground. We're supporting him by the strongest part of his anatomy, his chest. So that structured walk, I think having the boyfriend come and take the dog for a walk every time he comes over is going to create a positive association. Let me see. And then, did I go through the street number thing on this? We had to re-record this. My phone ran out of time. I don't think I did it. So what we're going to do is when the boyfriend gets to the end of the block, he's going to text the primary guardian. She's going to go outside and she's going to go to every driveway or every walkway to the house and put a treat down on the ground. And then she's going to text him the house numbers. I did it from 105 to 125. So when he's turned around coming back on the same path, when he gets to 125, he knows that there's a treat there. We're not going to let the dog, because he started rushing to try to take it. Again, that's him thinking he's in charge. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop as soon as he pulls, tell him to sit. As soon as he sits, and we're going to start walking towards it again when he's nice and calm. As soon as he starts pulling or moving in front, we stop again. Correct? Quick tug, and then relax the leash. Eventually, we should get to the point where he just almost stops in front of this treat, sit down, and looks up at you to see if he has permission to get it. When he takes it with his mouth, you can say the word take. And this way, we're teaching him a little bit of self-control. Just because I see something doesn't mean I can go get it. Let me see, what else? Don't defer around the dog. Burning energy matters. So use the escalating consequence. Stand up if you mean business. If the dog's in your way, don't walk around him, walk through him. The dog needs to learn to defer away from the humans and see that's a small little way that helps the dog identify the humans as having more authority than he does. Let me see. The leave it exercise we went over in the video above. I'm not going to go through that, but practice that. When you practice that, again, keep it very short and try to do it multiple times a day. Dogs kind of file away what they learn when they sleep. So the ideal situation is to practice it with them, let him take a nap, and then practice it with him a little bit later on. Don't practice all at once. Practice throughout the day. Let me see. What else? There was something else I wanted to go over, and I remembered, and I forgot it already, but I will remember it in a minute. Soft mouth. So we're going to do that soft mouth very slowly towards him. This is primary guardian only at first, but eventually you can do it too. We're going to go slowly. As soon as he starts lunging for it, we pull away and say no. When it gets to the point, if you do it right, after a while you go like to the dog, and he'll go like this. And when he takes it, we say gentle or soft. So this will teach him to have a soft mouth. Let me see. So petting with a purpose, the guardian's going to need to exclusively pet the dog with a purpose. So we're going to ask him to sit, come, lay down. He just has to do something to change his state. Or he can prepay for it. He can come and sit in front of you and say, look, I'm sitting, sucker, pet me. So he's showing you respect, and he's being in a more subordinate position. Remember, sitting is more subordinate, and saying I'm challenging you less. Laying down is I surrender. I've given up challenging. If the dog does it on its own. If we're telling him to sit, it doesn't mean anything. So make sure that you outlast the dog. It's one of the dirty secrets I found in dog behavior is you have to always outlast your dog. So if you got to do something, you're doing an exercise, I'm going to be late to work or whatever, or don't do it if you got it somewhere you got to go. Make sure you have plenty of time so that you can outlast the dog. The dog needs to think the human will stop here until the end of time until they get their way. After about a month, the dog will get in the habit of doing it your way because he knows that you're never going to surrender. You're always going to get your way. So I might as well just do it her way right away and then make it happen. Now, because the dog is on some meds, one of them is a liquid that he can't have with any food. And he likes to run around the place. And so the guardian's chasing him. If she's chasing him, it becomes a game for him, and also he's in the leadership position because he's being pursued. So what I would do is use passive training, which I talked about a little bit for feeding, but every time he comes to us, pet him and say, come. And then what I would do is maybe if there's like what you might want to do is get like a chicken broth. Is it an eyedropper that you squirt in his mouth?
It's like a little...
It's a spray?
It's like a pump.
No, it's like a little pump, yeah.
But like an eyedropper?
No, it has like
It's
a hook on
attached.
it, and you just put it under your tongue, and it kind of like push down. And
Okay. Can you open it?
I don't think...
Ask the vet if you can get one that you can open, because what I'd like to do is train him to open his mouth and like doing that. We can get some chicken broth.
He actually doesn't mind taking it. It's getting to the point where the
So
game
again,
is over.
instead of chasing around, every time for passive training, every time he comes to us, we're pet him and say, come. So that's a good thing. It's a rewarded thing. Okay. And so the more you do that, then when you ask him to come when it's time to do that, then he comes over and he gets a little reward. And then maybe he gets a belly rub or a special scratch behind the ear. Make it a positive thing. That's something else is, that's what I was going to go over before. The rules for structured walk, before I go through the rules, if he goes out and he doesn't pee in the designated pee area, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, then bring him back inside and wait about 15 minutes. When he gets fussy, he's saying, I got to go potty. Take him back outside the same spot. Keep on doing that until he potties. When he potties, then go for a walk around the block. Walking around the block is a reward for the dog. And so this way, careful of your finger. But every time that he potties, we go for a walk. So we're giving an incentive to go potty. Now, the rules for a structured walk. Rule number 1, keep the dog in the same position. So in his side, situation on the left side. His front shoulder should be aligned with the human's hip. When we correct a quick tug up and then immediately relax the leash. Make sure you're bending your elbow forward. If he gets too far in front and you try to do that, you're going to be pulling back. So make sure you don't let him get too far ahead. His nose should never exceed the stride of your foot as you're moving forward. Rule number 2, keep your arm nice and relaxed. The Guardian was walking and kind of pulling him back in position at times. So keep it nice and relaxed. Now, if he gets in front of us, we could do that circle that I showed you to get him back in position. And remember, when he gets in the position you want to be, quick tug to tell him you're in the spot that I want, so stop moving. Now, again, we quick tug and we take the tension off the leash before he has a chance to activate his opposition reflex. Rule number 3 is no stopping and sniffing. To tell a dog he can't sniff would be cruel, but if we let the dog stop and sniff everywhere at once, he's dictating the walk, and the nose controls 60% of the dog's brain. So if he's sniffing something, he can't listen to us even if he wants to, but I don't think in this case he wants to. So we let him sniff as he's walking, but if he keeps on, he stays there, let your arm go dead, don't pull him from behind, and just keep on walking, hold on the leash, and eventually the rig will constrict around his chest, and then he'll come right along. The last one is no marking. He is marking, and it is absolutely related to his perception of being the authority figure. So we're not going to allow him to mark anymore. You pee here, then we go on the walk, and then we let you pee here again at the end of the walk. If we come in and he hasn't done it, we bring him back inside. When he gets fussy, take him back outside. But I think, again, if you do what I talked about just right before this, take him outside, and when he potties, then he gets the reward of a walk. He feels better about it. Now, a structured walk is not an everyday walk. It might be an everyday walk for him for the short term. And one of the things I do is between every house, I stop, tell the dog to sit, give him a treat, and say sit after the treat goes in his mouth, then walk again. Sometime before we get to the next driveway, do the same thing. If you do this with every driveway and you go like 8 blocks, by the time you get back, you probably practice the sit at a stop like 50, 75 times. After a week of doing this, you'll stop, the dog will sit automatically, anticipating getting the treat. And sitting is a more subordinate position, so it's very beneficial for the dog to sit in that regard. Let me see. Some of the other rules: not allowed on the furniture, not being allowed in the kitchen. We're going to use the escalating consequences. Did I go through the escalating consequences in this video? Mm-hmm. Okay. So make sure we use those to keep them out of there instead of the baby gate. You can use the baby gate at times, but we really want the dog to respect the authority of the person because of the person's authority, not because of there's a tool involved. Let me see. The soft mouth exercise we went over. Focus exercise. If I forget to put it in, it's not linked in the writing above, email me and I'll send you a link to it. The Guardian practices it a little bit. When I do that, I usually have about 10 to 15 treats in my hand. I do that 2 or 3 times a day. But the idea is to, again, progressive. So remember, there's a tunnel of vision. So I raise it up here to the tunnel, and then I go straight towards the dog's mouth, and I pop it in the mouth, and I say the word focus. Hold it in your finger like this. Don't fumble with it. And at first, it's 1 second, 1 second. Then eventually, it's 1 second, 2 seconds. Then eventually, 1 second, 20 seconds. But it should take you about a week to 10 days to get up to the 20 seconds. And the more you practice, the faster out they get. You don't have to do it only 3 times a day. You can do it 5 times a day. The more you practice, the faster they'll get there. Let me see. It's really bad when you can't read your own writing. Food. The Guardian is going to feed the dog after she eats something first. We're going to put food in the bowl. He's already got some structure for feeding. What we're going to do is just say the command word of eat or food or whatever it is when he takes his first bite. Make sure that the human is always eating something first. It has to be a solid. 5 or more bites of a cracker is sufficient. Doesn't have to be a real meal. It's better if it's your real meal. But he just needs to see you eat something first. Now, I'd like the boyfriend to grab the dog's food and measure it out in a cup, hold it in his hands, and rub it between his hands and put it in a little Ziploc bag or some sort of container. And then that way, when the Guardian is feeding him, the boyfriend's scent is on the food. If we have somebody else that's going to be coming and visiting, that would be a good thing to do. When I got my puppy Quest, I wanted him to know me before I got there. I was only going to be there for a day. I mowed the lawn, and I took a towel, and I wiped all the sweat down off of my body, and then I put it in a Ziploc bag and mailed it to my breeder, Linda. She put it on the floor, and the dog came over and he sniffed it. And at first he was interested in the scent, but then what she started doing every time, a couple times a day, she put it on the floor and she'd drop a treat on it. He'd go over there and take the treat up, but he's getting a little bit of my scent. When I went up to meet him, all the puppies did something cool that I just talked about off camera, but he knew exactly who I was. He came up, and it was different with him than everybody else because I had introduced my scent in a positive way. So by putting the boyfriend's food or any house gas scent on the food, the dog is going to have more of a positive perception of that. Let me see. Wait. I need to get some glasses. All right, I think that's pretty much it. The resource guarding I haven't talked about because it's in the video above, and that's something that I would have everybody that comes over practice, and it's going to be different angles, different distances. What you should find is you're able to get the dog, you get closer and closer to the dog without the dog reacting. Now remember, the dog has to be sub-threshold. He can go like this and bare his teeth, he can growl, he just can't start freaking out. If he freaked out, take him out for a walk, put him in the bathroom, do whatever you have to do to help him settle down, then practice it again. And then the last thing is when you have guests come over, make sure the guests are, we don't want to catch him by surprise. As we transition, he'll be less and less reactive. But if I'm a guest and I want to get up, I go, he just looked at me. So now if I get up, he sees me, what I'm doing. He doesn't think I'm trying to slide one by him. He probably is going to be reactive to begin with, but the more we do the exercise for the resource guarding, the less he should be about that. And the more we enforce the boundaries, the less he's going to feel like he needs to protect his guardian. The more she consistently pets with a purpose and rewards desired behaviors, now he's going to know what he can do to make the humans happy. It's going to be a process. It's going to take a little bit of time, and there's going to be setbacks, ups and downs. If you have questions or setbacks, there's a new problem or something you forgot to ask me about, I want you to text me. I always want my clients to let me know. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. So if you do have a question, call or text me. Texting is going to be the fastest way to reach me. I don't care if it's a minute after I walk out this door or if it's 10 years after I move out this door. Well, that'd be something for him because he's about 11. But there's no time limit on it. All right, this is Buster Keaton's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.